What's this?
What is it doing?
It's a presentation about how Quakers are related to the beginning of pharmacy, which is our family. I just got an email about it earlier today and I decided to join. I didn't.
Okay, well, this is the title, How Quakers Invented American Pharmacy. It's a bit of, well, they did. It's as simple as that. An Irish Quaker came from, but I'll go into that. This is Arch Street Meeting House. In the spring, you can see the nice flowers. And yeah, everyone knows it. So there we are. And this talk is part of the religious education speaker series of Arch Street Friends of Truth, also known as the monthly meeting of Friends of Philadelphia. And we started in 1682 by William Penn Jr. People don't realize that Pennsylvania was named after his father, who was also William Penn. Now that is the Big Bang, sort of, painted by my son. We didn't get sick until we had the Big Bang because we didn't exist. But eventually, after quite a few million years, along came the dinosaurs. Now, I'm fascinated by dinosaurs. I'm a member of the Academy of Natural Sciences, and I like to go hang out and look at the dinosaurs, which I did yesterday. But what's interesting is about this and why it's connected to pharmacy or healthcare, really, is look how tiny a person is. Look how enormous a dinosaur is. Now, what's interesting to me about this is you don't get to be this huge unless there's an enormous amount of food around. And it's interesting, whenever I see pictures of dinosaurs, they're always in like a desert with a few little cacti or something. And that obviously is ridiculous. They were somewhere where there was an enormous amount of food. And when you have food, there we are. And this is a dinosaur now, which is a bird. The dinosaurs, once they vanished, we ended up with birds. And this is a bird at Cape May. He's lovely. Oh. So what makes us sick? Why do we need pharmacists, apothecaries, physicians, nurses? The main reason is we have famine. And why do we have famine? You have famine because of wars, but also because you absolutely have no rain. And excuse my my drawings. I entertain myself immensely with these drawings. I don't. I hope you enjoy them. Cold, and this is a sheep with lots and lots of wool. That's another thing that makes you sick. Lack of sleep makes you sick. And predators, and there's all kinds of predators. Predators, of course, don't just include cats looking at goldfish, but also guns. There's a lot of ways you can get sick, and the human body can get sick by internally. Your genes are your genes are giving you cancer. The environment, you're breathing in things that give you all kinds of illnesses. Bacteria, viruses. There's all sorts of ways you can get sick. And what is interesting to me about, and this is modeled on my cat, Sir Lancelot. Cats are very good at taking care of themselves. It's like they understand healthcare. He had this enormous boil on his abdomen last year, and I tried to get an appointment with a vet, but I couldn't for 2 weeks. And meanwhile, he just licked it, and the boil burst and left this huge hole in his. You could see all the way through several layers of skin, and he just licked it and licked it, and the whole wound just healed, and he grew more. He grew hair again. I mean, that's just absolutely astonishing. And if he gets sick, he goes out and he eats grass. So it's like animals know how to heal themselves. And why are we so awfully bad at it? So this is ancient Greece, Olympia. Now, why I'm talking about ancient Greece is there were all kinds of healthcare in ancient Greece. And the ancient Greek doctors were supposed to be far better than the Roman doctors. So if you were in Rome and you were sick, you wanted a Greek doctor. And Aristotle saw himself as a physician. And if you've read the book of Aristotle, it's pretty scary. Now this is Asclepius, and you can see here the caduceus, or it's called this. Yeah, this is called the caduceus, with one snake, and two snakes are called the staff of Hermes. So he was the one that was supposed to be healing people, and you think, wow, pretty good. But Aristotle had, and the ancient Greeks had a theory that there were four. Here we are. There's the caduceus and the rod of Asclepius. Oh yeah. Before I get on to the four humors, there's all kinds of stories about the caduceus. One is that one snake killed another snake, and then the snake that was still alive did something to the dead snake and brought him back to life. And there's other kinds of stories too. I don't know. I don't. It's an odd thing. Apparently, physicians prefer the rod of Asclepius because there's only one snake, and the two snakes, the caduceus, that's also shared by commerce, and medicine should have nothing at all to do with commerce or something. That's why they don't use it. I thought, right, yeah, okay. Ancient Egypt too. They had all kinds of ways of potions, herbs, all sorts of things to try and cure things. What I'm saying so far is that at this stage, we're talking about antiquity, ancient Greece, Egypt. There is no difference between a pharmacist, apothecary, and a physician. They're all the same thing. There's like one group of people, and probably nurses as well. So they're all together. And if you get sick from any kind of diseases or wounds, they're the ones that are they're the ones that are trying to find ways to cure you by growing things and applying poultices and some pretty bizarre things. So here we are. These are the four humors: phlegm, blood, black bile, and yellow bile. Maybe I've got it. And until Harvey in England in 1600s, this was the way people were healed in England too. I mean, this was the basis of medicine. You have to try and get the four humors in balance. So this was their holistic approach to taking care of people. This is pretty interesting. Now, what was interesting was, now I'm talking about England because, of course, the Quakers came from England. And you probably know my parents were both physicians trained in England. So I grew up with a certain understanding of what medicine was, which I think I was wrong. But this picture here is the Royal College of Physicians, which was founded in 1518 by King Henry VIII. And it really didn't get going until 1550s. Now, what happened was in 1536 to 1541, King Henry got rid of all the healthcare in England. He sacked the monasteries, and the monasteries were all about education and healthcare, and they're growing things, everything you needed. And he just got rid of them because he was, I believe he was fighting France. He was fighting someone. Yeah, I think France. I don't know. He was. The English were always fighting French. I mean, so that was part of it. However, the other problem with Henry VIII was he had horrible ulcers, and he kept falling off his horse, and he kept killing his wives, and he was very worried about his health. Very worried about his health, and some of these physicians got together and they said, we want to have a monopoly in medicine in London. You have to give it to us, which is why the Royal College of Physicians was founded. The Royal College of Physicians in London, first of all, it was like 7 miles around London, and then they included the whole of England. But that meant, though, you could only be a physician and take care of health if you went to university, which of course was Oxford and Cambridge. Although later on they included Padua. Now, Padua seems like a very interesting place. They all went to, Harvey went to Padua. William Harvey went to Padua. And so did John Caius, who was very important in forming the Royal College of Physicians. Now so there we are. So meanwhile, it's like, how did the apothecaries come into this? Well, they didn't. That was the problem. This is a sacked monastery, just in case you want to look, in York, still standing, amazing picture. Yeah, when he sacked the monasteries, he really did it. They took away a lot of the stones of various monasteries and built things with it. And of course, they took all the money and the land. And in fact, Henry VIII increased his properties, the properties of England, 1/3 by removing the monasteries. So not only did they remove the possibility of healthcare and education, they also made themselves very rich. He made himself very rich. Now, this actually is a very interesting book. And this man here was a physician. I don't remember if he went to, what's this? No, sorry. I don't remember if he went to Padua, but his book, I've downloaded a whole lot of books that you can, if you're interested in any of this part, you can find them all. Well, most of these are in Gutenberg. But Merritt wrote a book, which I don't know, can you see it? It's what he was doing was saying the abuses of the apothecaries, and it's really great. He's talking about, where is he? Here we are. A short view of the frauds and abuses committed by apothecaries, because the physicians wanted the business. Apothecaries, now we're sort of getting into what the difference is between an apothecary and a physician. An apothecary was poor. They didn't go to university. Maybe they grew stuff in their backyards or something, and they compounded stuff. but they didn't have the same social status as the physicians. This is really nice. So here he printed this book. Christopher Merritt printed this book just to whine about how miserable the apothecaries were. And if you, it's not doing it. Why is it not doing it? But anyway, he's saying that he can no longer make, they're taking away all the bloodletting and the all the other things that and the poultices and all the other things that they do. So, all right, that's not doing it. But anyway, this is my reference list anyway, if you're interested in any of these. And some of these are pretty amazing. I'm going to be talking in a few minutes about Nicholas Culpeper. Which was a very influential book in the 1600s. But meanwhile, let's get back to the slideshow. Okay. I'm going, sorry, I went backwards. I don't know how that happened. Sorry about that. Start from first slide. Okay. Here we are. You get to see them again. So the other reason that Henry VIII was so worried about, I mean, apart from his own health, was because there was a massive epidemic in the 1500s, or around about 1518, 1510, 1518, 1520. It went on, I believe, till the 1530s. 1551 was when it ended. It was called the sweating sickness. And people were getting sick and dying within 24, 36 hours. And what's interesting is I can't find any information about what the disease was. Some kind of rapid moving flu. I saw someone suggested it was a hantavirus, something to do with rats or mice or something. I don't know, but it was very scary. And perfectly healthy people were just dead within 24, 36 hours. So this was another reason that Henry VIII liked the idea of having a body that could be controlled and knew what they were doing. Now this is the Apothecaries' Hall. Now we're jumping a hole to the 1600s. So by this time Shakespeare's dead, Queen Elizabeth I is dead, and the 1600s in England were very tumultuous. There was a civil war. They chopped the head off Charles I. The Quakers turned up. And at the end of the 1600s, of course, they came to the United States. The Quakers came to the United States. But this is interesting. The Apothecaries' Hall, you see how beautiful that is? So it took 100 years after the royal physicians, before the apothecaries had any sort of respect. Now, but what was interesting about the apothecaries is that in 1704, so 100 years after the apothecaries started, the House of Lords decided they could practice medicine. And they had the same status as practitioners of medicine. Elizabeth Garrett Anderson, who was the first woman physician in England, was an apothecary allowed to practice medicine. So apparently was John Keats. It's amazing what you learn. Gosh. Anyway, back to the 1600s. This was this man, Nicholas Culpeper, was a physician, and apparently Culpeper means something like mischief. He liked to cause trouble. So what happened was the Royal College of Physicians produced a book all about pharmacology, pharmacy. It was called Pharmacopoeia Londininus, and it was in Latin. And Dr. Culpeper translated it into English. And then he thought, and it was published. And then he thought, well, I could do a much better job than they're doing. So he put together a book. And this book it's still good today. The Complete Herbalist, The Complete Herbal. And they're all there. It tells you what you use a herb for, what it cures, how not to use too much. So this is very nice, and I gave you the reference is right there. It's on Gutenberg, so you can download it and read it if you're interested. And the cover, I don't know how when this cover was put on it, but it's rather gorgeous. Then we come to the United. How did we come to the United States so early? Wait a second. Okay, sorry. No. Oh, I've got to get this right. Okay. The Food and Drug Administration in the United States was founded in 1906. So before then, we didn't have any government control of drugs, biologics, devices. Since 1900, it was founded in 1906 because people were dying from bad food and bad drugs. So a law set it up in 1906. Another law was passed in 1937. In 1906, all you had to do with a drug was prove that it was safe. Food was another story. I mean, you had to prove that the food was clean and unadulterated, and nothing was added that wasn't told. But in 1936, there was an epidemic of flu, and a chemist in a drug company, well, there were a whole lot of kids that were sick, and they wanted an elixir instead of a tablet. And a chemist in a drug company dissolved a whole lot of sulfanilamide in diethylene glycol and sent it out. And kids started drinking it and started dying. Now, the FDA very rapidly saw what was going on, and they pulled all the drugs that they could find, and within a year they passed a law saying that not only did a drug have to work, it had to be safe. And then we come up to the 1950s and 60s with thalidomide, and thalidomide was not passed as a drug in the United States because of one pharmacist at the FDA who said, this is not safe. We will not accept the testimony of doctors saying that it's safe for morning sickness. And it was a massive catastrophe in Australia and in England. My mother, at the end of her career, she was working in Veterans Affairs in Australia. And of course, and she was doing prosthetics and making sure everyone could walk. And so she had a lot of thalidomide babies that she was putting limbs on. And I just remember her coming home just delighted, thrilled, so excited. She'd put legs on this little thalidomide boy, and he'd walk for the first time, and he was so excited. It was just lovely. So that's the FDA. Now I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's how the, the FDA makes sure that regulates the drugs, but they don't regulate pharmacists. That's a different thing altogether. I have not been able to find out when pharmacists started being used as a term. I don't know if anyone knows that. Now, this is Arch Street Meeting House again, and look at these great big walls. And we were told that the walls were so high because during the yellow fever epidemic, people were throwing bodies over the walls because Arch Street Meeting was a burial ground. So they were throwing bodies over the wall for people to bury them. It was a general burial ground, but it was still under the care of Quakers. And so the Quakers just built the walls higher. Yeah. How about that? But yellow fever was a huge issue in the United States, and I know quite a bit about yellow fever, but I'm not really going to talk about it now. It changed a lot of practice in Philadelphia, the way things were practiced. So now we go back to my topic. American pharmacists, American Quakers inventing pharmacy. Well, here we have someone called Christopher Marshall. And Christopher Marshall was from Dublin, and he was an apothecary in Dublin, and he came to Philadelphia, and he set up a shop. And he's actually a very interesting man. I mean, he didn't just set up a shop. He was very interested in training people. He was one of the signatories. No, he wasn't. His son was. So he started a whole tree of pharmacists as well. His granddaughter was the second female pharmacist in the United States. It's confusing. What's a pharmacist and what's an apothecary? An apothecary could be anyone who's growing things and compounding things, and they don't have to go to university. That was the thing. Now, Christopher was very interested in everything being done right. He wasn't a snake oil salesman. He took his work very, very seriously. And his son was one of the apothecaries who met at Carpenter's Hall in 1821 with the goal of making pharmacy a profession. And in 1821, they started the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, which became part of, I believe it still exists. I mean, when I was teaching at the University of the Sciences in Philadelphia, one of the faculties was still called the College of Pharmacy, Philadelphia College of Pharmacy. And in 2022, Philadelphia College of Pharmacy ceased to exist after 200 years and became part of the St. Joseph's University. But they still have something called the College of Pharmacy, but they don't call it the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy anymore. So this is just around the corner from the meeting house. Now, what was interesting, okay, well, there's the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, 1821 to 2021. This, I believe, was built about in the 1920s. So this was not the original building. I'm going backwards. Why is it doing this? Sorry about this. Sorry. Okay.
Just having trouble.
You get to see it again. It's not all bad. Now, what's interesting is in 1821, all these apothecaries decided to invent, they were Quaker. That was the issue. They were Quakers. Christopher Marshall was a Quaker. His son was a Quaker. His grandchildren were Quakers. There was a very strong Quaker influence in the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, which is interesting because, as I said, the rich people became physicians and the poorer people became apothecaries. And a lot of the Quakers were, of course, farmers, so it made sense. Now, 1820, the U.S. Pharmacopoeia was formed by 11 physicians who met together in Washington with the goal of having a continuing document saying what needs to be in every drug. And they still do that today. It's a non-profit institute. It's not government, and they see themselves as the third part, keeping everyone safe, everyone's health safe. But you can see in 18, these were physicians, and I remember hearing that the University of Pennsylvania really wanted to take control of the pharmacists, because, of course, I mean, if you look in West Philadelphia, University of Pennsylvania, very close to the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy. And they wanted to take it over and tell the pharmacists what to do and the apothecaries what to do. And the apothecaries did not want to be told what to do by a bunch of physicians. So I think this had a huge effect on the apothecaries getting started, deciding, okay, we're going to have our own university. Doing it again. It's going backwards. Okay. Now, this is interesting. The Pharmacologia, Fellow of the Royal College of Physicians of London. So this, in England, I'm not sure when the pharmacists, well, I mean, we already know the College of Pharmacy was, the College of Apothecaries was founded in 1617, and they were able to practice medicine, but they didn't stop fighting. But look at this Pharmacologia in Latin, 1831. Yes. So what happened was, once the College of Pharmacy started in 1821, there was an enormous output of papers and books. The Journal of Pharmacy was started in 1825. I found some of the original journals. The American Journal of Pharmacy, I think, I can't remember what it's called. It's called something like that. But the race was on. And then along came, no, oh yes, at the same time, I mean, here we have this fight between pharmacy and pharmacists and physicians, drugs and diagnosis. And along comes Florence Nightingale, who's decided, look at her, you can see she thinks you're an idiot. She thought everyone was an idiot, and we probably were compared with her. She was born in 1820, so right at the time of the College of Pharmacy in the United States. The Crimean War was in 1864, and she was invited to go and take care of the wounded in the Crimean War by the Secretary of the Army. She was very well connected, and she'd already gone to Germany and France to train as a nurse. She got all her anatomy by being born into a very wealthy family and spending a lot of time in the museums of Rome, of Italy and France and Germany. That's why she's called Florence, because she was born in Italy, in Firenze. So she was highly trained. She went over to Crimea, and she realized that the physicians the training for physicians was not standard then. I mean, you could become a physician at 1 year training, or you could just call yourself a physician. By the 20th century, this had sort of settled down a bit. But she decided, when she was starting nursing in England, she just thought that medicine was an absolute disaster. So she was very interested in her training. My father went to medical school at St. Thomas's Hospital, which was part of the University of London. St. Thomas's Hospital in England, in London, which is right across the Thames River from the Houses of Parliament. And St. Thomas's Hospital was largely built by Florence Nightingale, because after she came back from the Crimean War, having done so much good for so many people, the British public spontaneously raised an enormous amount of money. She was very wealthy, but this was the gratitude of the British public. And the reason they knew about it was because an American journalist had been following her around and started writing about her. Otherwise, no one would have really known. So this large amount of money went to move St. Thomas's Hospital from one area of London to another. And so I have a huge debt to Florence Nightingale. Her wonderful care trained my father, which is amazing. Anyway, she was offered a medical degree on the basis of her training nurses, writing. She wrote an enormous amount, but she was very concerned in her training of the nurses that they understood medicines and they understood food and air and light and sleep, all of the things that we know about now. And when she was offered a medical degree by the person who was in charge of this, Sir Henry Ackland, she said, "My God, no." No way. It would ruin nurses and it would ruin physicians, which is very interesting to me. I saw a letter that she wrote in Oxford in the Bodleian Library. Very interesting. Now, of course, it's all happened. What is more and more, nurses and pharmacists, they can now diagnose in some states. Oh, this is another thing too. Pharmacists are not regulated federally. They're regulated by their own state boards. And it's the same as nurses. And I believe it's also the same as physicians. Although I'm not sure how that works. But I know some nurses, nurse practitioners, depending on the state, some states they can diagnose and prescribe without physician oversight. And some of them they can diagnose and prescribe with physician oversight. And some of them they can't do that. But anyway, there's three classes of what nurses can do. And that seems to me pretty much like a general practitioner. I mean, if you can prescribe and diagnose, you're pretty much there as a general practitioner of medicine, which I think is interesting. And pharmacists too. They never used to be able to prescribe or diagnose. Now they can, if they've done their clinical training. In England, during the pandemic, pharmacists were finally given permission to give vaccinations, because there was just so many people needed to be vaccinated at once. So there was actually a law in Parliament passed letting pharmacists do that. And that's so very different how things are treated in the United States and in England. And here we get to, do you recognize them, Peggy? This is Joseph Price Remington. And he was born in, I've got it down here. Oh, in 1886 was when he was born in 1847. In 1886 was when he started Remington. And as I said before, there was an enormous output of books and scholarly papers that came out of the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy. And he was a professor of pharmacy practice. And he later became dean of pharmacy. And he was also was president for a while of the International Pharmacy Association, whatever that was. Yeah, so there we are. Do you recognize him? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Does he look like Craig's children? Right. Craig's children are great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren.
Yep, 3 greats.
3 greats. Okay. Well, that's okay. That counts. That's good.
Oh, yes.
That counts. That's great.
That's the best picture I've seen of him ever.
Is that right?
Yep.
It wasn't. I see. Someone really liked him when they put together that picture.
Yep.
Well, it's just really nice. Look at the light in his eyes. It's just very nice. So the last copy of Remington was, you can see it's the 23rd edition, was in 2021 for the 200th anniversary of the University of the Sciences, which actually wasn't. It was the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy was really what the 200th anniversary was for. Yeah. It only became University of the Sciences after they bought Briars. They brought University of the Sciences was in West Philadelphia, and Philadelphia College of Pharmacy doubled the size when they became University of the Sciences because they bought Briars ice cream. That plot.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. The old pharmacists used to talk about how great it was, when they were studying and they were able to go and get free ice cream any time they liked. And
that was the only ice cream allowed in my house growing up.
Is that right? Why is that?
Because Briars was the only ice cream my father would eat.
That's interesting. I wonder if there's a Quaker background to Briars ice cream too. It's interesting because then anytime I start looking at anything in Philadelphia, I start seeing Quaker roots. I live on Redmond Avenue, and I've lived here, my house that I've lived in for 40 years. And Thomas Redmond was a pharmacist in Haddonfield. So, I mean, a Quaker pharmacist. And I showed you the pictures of the dinosaurs. The first complete skeleton in the United States came from a Quaker farm in Haddonfield.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that's it, I guess. Yeah. I think I finished it. Did you see it? Yeah, I think I showed you all of it. Yep. So that's me, just in case you're remotely interested. I do on occasion put more information on the on my Wednesday in the Quakerhood newsletter, and so some of this you if you read it, and I'm not sure how many people do, some of this has been on that. I have on my YouTube channel, I put a lot of videos on a lot of cats and dinosaurs, yeah, and geese, animals, right? Okay. So that's it for sharing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions? Not that I can answer them, but questions are always good.
Susanna, I was curious as to whether you know of any connection between Quakers and the development of the pharmacy industry.
Oh, sorry, I left that out. Yes, I mean, absolutely. That's exact. Well, that's what happened. Well, if you know that the Quakers were the ones that started the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, it sort of makes sense that all the businesses that came out of the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, a lot of them were Quaker. I don't know which particular ones were, but Johnson and Johnson came out of it. The drug companies SmithKline came out of it. I don't even remember what all the drug companies were called now, but they're McNeil joined up with Johnson and Johnson. In fact, when I first started working in the pharmaceutical industry in 1982, I was working with McNeil. I had a contract when I was at the University of Pennsylvania. These suits walked in with a little vial of drug and say, make sure this does not, tell us this does or doesn't inhibit carbonic anhydrase. And that set me on some nice contracts that lasted for about, 20 years. Yeah. So I've worked for various drug companies. And Philadelphia always had a lot of drug companies. But now they're all sort of moving away. Philadelphia and New Jersey. And it came out of the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, absolutely.
Hey, Susanna, I was just wondering, your degrees were from USNW. What college was that stand for?
University of New South Wales.
Oh, okay. I was just curious about that. Yeah.
Yeah, Australia. Yeah, I left as soon as I had my PhD in my hand. Yeah. Because that's why I came to the United States to work at the University of Pennsylvania Department of Physiology. And I was there for 18 years and it was wonderful. That's another thing too. They call themselves Quakers. They're athletic teams. And there has to be a reason for that.
Who calls themselves Quakers?
There's doctors.
Oh.
She's been talking about.
Oh.
Yeah, they call themselves Quakers. Yeah.
Well, because of William Penn, probably. University of Pennsylvania.
Benjamin Franklin founded the University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, he was not a Quaker. That's right.
He was definitely not a Quaker because I walked past his grave for every Sunday.
Yeah, he was a deist. He was
Right.
a deist.
He was a
deist.
Right. In Christ Church. He was a member of Christ Church on 2nd Street. There's a lovely story about how when they declared the independence from Britain, they signed it. I guess he was one of them. They signed it and they ran down the street to 2nd Street and crossed out King from the Book of Prayer. They weren't going to pray for the King anymore. That's great. So that's not what Quakers did. Quakers probably just sort of a little quieter, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Susanna,
Yes.
is it okay if we contact you with more questions? I have so much stuff here.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Please do.
I have a whole article here on the first century of the College of Pharmacy with
Great.
with a list of the first graduates.
Yeah. Oh, great.
And
that's
it's
very
the
nice.
letter is from the family of one of those first graduates.
Mm.
So there's just tons of history here.
Are you a pharmacist or any of your relatives pharmacists?
We have one physician, no pharmacist that I know of.
Um,
And
So
the
it's-
physician's last name is Remington. He's about 30 and a Mormon.
right.
What can I tell you?
Well,
But
at least he's not part of the gun Remingtons.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
well,
pretty shocking. Because I look up Remington and I keep finding guns. It's like, my gosh, yeah.
now just think about the typewriters and the shavers.
No, that would be great. It's lovely meeting you. You know,
But I'm so glad I did this
yeah,
because this has sort of been on the back part of my stuff to do since the reunion. But it's all been interesting. It's just, it clearly was an amazing family. And as they handed things down in pieces, there's a whole piece of our family history in Longport, New Jersey. And there was a reunion in Longport as well, because they built a church there. I guess 100 or so more years ago. And they all gathered at the church in September. And I couldn't go, but it's just incredible. And the good thing about the Mormon piece is that my brother, who is a Remington, they believe in lots of children. So the family continues.
I see.
So I will email you and let you know what else I have that might be interesting.
Okay,
It looks as if the copy of the Book of Pharmacy that Remington wrote, the most recent copyright date in there is 1917.
Okay, because the first one was 1886.
Right.
Now, when he died, he gave the copyright over to the University of the Sciences. So so now, of course, when the University of the Sciences ceased to exist, everything went over to St. Joseph's University. So St. Joseph's University has the copyright now.
What's the connection between St. Joseph's? I mean, why that university of all the possible ones in the Philadelphia?
I think because they were always angry with the University of Pennsylvania. It would have made a lot more. It would have made a lot more sense for the University of Pennsylvania to buy it.
Absolutely, it was across the street.
Across the street, they have a medical school, but I think 200 years of not trusting physicians, because of course St. Joseph's University does not have a medical school, so I think that was part of it. But it's very, very, very strange. I mean, it was very strange. I mean, it's not even close. And now St. Joseph's University is talking about selling off some of the buildings, which is awful.
Oh,
Yeah, which is it's a shame. It was just such a lovely little college. And then they suddenly decided, I mean, buying Breyer's ice cream, that was stupid. You know, how could they do that? And then they kept going into debt because they were building these beautiful things, and they were just, it was just very, very sad. How can you? I mean, stopping existing after 200 years. I mean, that takes some doing. Yeah.
The head of the College of Pharmacy, when I was a young man, was a man named Dr. Tice. And I lived in Salem, New Jersey, as everyone knows. And Dr. Tice, for some strange reason, lived in Salem, New Jersey, and commuted to Philadelphia every day.
wow.
But he was head of the College of Pharmacy for a number of years. This is some decades ago.
That's very interesting.
And when I was a private attorney, he was friendly with my father, and he came to me with a legal problem because he was a member of a boating duck hunting club, but he didn't hunt, he didn't shoot, but he was a member. He liked to get in the boats and go to the marsh to the club, which was on stilts, and somebody contested the title to the duck club, And so he knew my father, so he came to me to solve that problem.
Did you solve it? Yes.
Well, I did. I went to court,
Wow. Yeah. Gosh.
but he was. I don't know much about him, but he was very quiet and very highly respected in the Salem community.
Did he
And
have a did he have a farm? Did he have a garden?
no.
He wasn't growing botanicals or
No,
herbals?
he lived in the town, very near where my family lived. But he was head of the College of Pharmacy for a number of years.
Yeah.
That's all I know. It's a complete tangent.
Yeah. Of course, I left out the most important thing, the difference between herbs and medicines. A pharmacy now is all about pills. And when someone invented a way of crushing, of making 1,000,000 pills, where the first one was identical to the last one, that's really what pharmacy is all about. But herbs, of course, I mean, you grow a herb one side of the hill or the other side of the hill, it's got a different amount of active ingredients in it. But this, I mean, I can, I could talk about this forever. But when I went to Lagos as the guest of the pharmacy faculty, I went a couple of times. They had a lab for herbal medicine practitioners, and they'd bring them in on Saturdays and train them in little physiology so that they sort of understood something.
I want to show you something with respect to pills, and I'll get it and I'll show it to you.
Okay, yeah, great. But that's the difference, though. What is I mean, that's the difference between a herb and a prescribed medicine. Yeah.
Susanna, while he's doing that, I just want to know if you've ever read Elizabeth Gilbert's book, The Signature of All Things, which is all about pharmacy in Philadelphia and herbs. It's absolutely fabulous.
I think that is a name I remember.
Yeah, she's a great author.
I think I've got that. I pulled about 100 books. Yeah.
This is a piece of marble with measurements on it, and it belonged to my great-grandfather, who was a Salem physician. And what he had this on his desk, he died in 1917 of the Spanish flu in his 70s. And he had graduated from the University of Pennsylvania Medical School in about 1870. And he would measure out the pill was not in pill form, it was in powder form. And he would measure the dosage along this line and give you the powder in a little envelope.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't dealing with pills.
Right.
He was dealing with powders. And when we broke up when my father broke up his house, somehow I hung on to this thing.
Beautiful.
Which I carry with me to my apartment in Philadelphia. I also inherited, when my father died, a human skull with a bullet hole in it that my great-grandfather had in his office. And so my father kept it on the shelf in the den for many years. And when both my parents died, I was by that time a judge. And I had this skull. So I thought, I better not bury this in the backyard, or this will be the beginning of a very big story. So I was one of 2 county judges, and I went to the prosecutor and I said, I have this skull. It belonged to my great-grandfather. And of course, you wouldn't believe that story. But of course, I was by that time, I was so important that he couldn't disbelieve me. So
What happened?
he sent the skull to the Attorney General's office to dispose of it, because I was in a complete quandary, and I have no idea why my father hung on to it all those years, but he did.
So you have no idea who it was?
No, somebody who was shot.
Yeah.
Anyway,
What?
that's a digression. That's a digression. That it takes away from your message tonight.
Yes,
But I
my
couldn't
main,
resist showing you this, though.
it's lovely, absolutely
Yeah.
lovely.
It's also good for cocaine.
I bet. I bet. You know, my main message really is that healthcare diverged and now it's converging again. That's really my main message.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It's you know, and the best thing to do is be a cat. I mean, I'm just so impressed at how my cat can heal himself.
Yeah.
We're really useless, aren't we? I mean, he has his own coat. Doesn't bother him. Oh my, he can clean himself and he can cure himself. It's like, you know, I think we need to look at cats a lot more than we do, you know.
Are you still recording, Lois?
Oh, well, she'll cut this out.
Yes, I can cancel the recording right now.
Yeah.
Let's see.